You want to start off with question number one. Why no veggies?
Because they're trying to kill us.
But why, Courtney?
Oh gosh. I mean, they're all like different. They all have different things. The defense chemicals, some are going to have like a lot of oxalates, some are going to have the lectins, and they don't want to be eaten. They
Right.
want to stay alive. So I was reading some weird shit. Like there's some plants that like change whatever thing they're sending out. Oh, it's going to get loud. I'm sorry. My husband just turned on the water outside. It's going to be really loud. He doesn't realize how loud it's going to be. So sorry about that. Um, that they'll like change whatever like thing they're sending out to like, one of them was like that it turns like something into like a carnivore so it doesn't want to eat the plant, like just some weird stuff. So if we're eating that,
plants can be super trippy. Like I wrote down some, like the anti-nutrients that Courtney's talking about are literally chemicals that will make you or an animal, whatever is consuming it, sick and ill. And we all respond differently. The thing is people don't realize how sick they make us because we've been eating these things for forever. And so we don't realize how sick we feel because we've never eliminated it out of our diet, 90% of us, if it's not 99% of us. But one of like the ones that I'm most familiar are histamines, which you can find in wine. You can find it in tons of like fermented vegetables, things like that. That will often give almost like an allergic response. Like if you went outside and there was a lot of pollen, a lot of people don't realize they have a histamine response when they're like, I can't hear the water.
Yeah, that's my mom. Thank you. It's so loud. Like I hear it really loud. I'm like, ooh.
Yeah, I can barely tell.
Okay. So what noise?
So the histamines will make you feel like you have a stuffy nose, maybe a little bit drowsy. For me, oxalates, I'm taking my Apple Watch off. The oxalates are the ones that I'm really familiar with because I had some kidney issues, which is why I started carnivore. My cat is featured in the back right there. And these will actually cause like little crystallizations of calcium in the kidneys, in the bloodstream. You can pass them through the urethra. So you're getting these little micro kidney stones, but they're so small that you don't even know that you have them because they're almost virtually indetectable. I was diagnosed with interstitial cystitis, which is an inflammation of the bladder lining. Basically feels like a permanent UTI, but there's no infection, and an enlarged kidney. And so once I got those oxalates out of my diet, I mean, I haven't had a flare up since. So I am almost 100% sure it was the oxalates. So that's my familiarity with the toxins.
Did you eat a lot of spinach by chance?
No.
Or used to? Okay, because I remember reading spinach and kidney stones can be linked.
Yes. No. What I did do a lot of is almonds. A ton of almond milk, and almonds have tons of oxalates in them. So I'm pretty sure that was one of the main culprits. I also did a ton of like macadamia nuts, and they have oxalates in them.
Those.
I do too. It's like one thing that I'm like, oh, if I could eat that, it would be macadamia nuts.
Because it's such a good like keto nut because of the net carbs so
fatty.
low.
Yes, it's so fatty, and then they put sea salt on them, and they're so delicious. But I'm pretty sure it was the almond milk. That's what I'm gonna go with. Yeah, that's what I'm pretty sure was the main culprit, because we don't do a lot of spinach just because why? Like,
yeah,
why? So
did your doctor suggest this to you then as an elimination diet?
An elimination diet was his first like course of action. Like I did a procedure to get an internal like scope of my bladder. He said, you have interstitial cystitis. My recommendation is always the first protocol is an elimination diet. Of course, his wasn't like eliminate everything. It was a list of 10 food groups, starting with like the diet sodas, any alcohol, any type of acidic foods, any spicy foods. There were certain seasonings, and I eliminated all of them. And I am a huge, I'm a coffee person, like a lot of coffee. And so I cut out coffee, and that was super hard. I think I did it. I can't remember if I did it 4 or 6 weeks. But it was between 4 and 6 weeks. I cut all that stuff out, and I was still having flare-ups. And that was when I was like, you know what? Like, I don't know what is causing this. I just need to cut out everything besides meat. So he led me to that path.
Yeah.
So I have touched base with him, and I'm like, I did an elimination diet. I feel great. And he's like, oh, keep doing what you're doing. So everything is normal.
Good.
So it's working.
And have you had labs done since eating this way?
No, and I need to. My husband's work schedule is really crazy, but it's calming down now. He's on vacation, so I'm going to go get them done probably within the next 4 weeks because I'm super curious. Like the last time I had my lab results, my thyroid was a little wonky and stuff. So I'd like to see where that is right now as well. And that cholesterol.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm excited for that because I got my blood work done before eating this way, not knowing that I was going to be eating this way. And I just went because I was feeling like shit. So I thought something was wrong. And my doctor said, oh, everything looks normal. I didn't even look at the thing. I sent it to my mom, actually. And she obviously read it because like a week or so later, she's like, well, your cholesterol was like a little high. And so I looked at the thing and he said everything was normal, but it was in a high range. And that was me eating like a healthy-ish diet, trying to be mindful about what I was eating. So I have high hopes that eating this way is going to lower it. I would love it. I just want to
prove everyone wrong.
Yes.
No,
so it's just funny how like not being meat heavy caused my cholesterol to be high.
It was those seed oils.
Probably.
What about, so no veggies, and another thing to touch on that with why no veggies is, the veggies that we're eating today did not exist in evolution. Almost all of them are created from, like, what is it, like a broccoli plant or something like that. These are like Brussels sprouts, cauliflower. None of these existed as we consume them, hundreds of years ago. It was created by scientists to be grown in our gardens, our mass production of vegetables, and these were not things found in nature.
Yeah.
That's like an important thing.
Yeah, that's interesting because and maybe I should have researched this more, but what were they eating back in the day? Was it just berries, like in the hunter-gatherer thing?
Well, I think that that's maybe a good point to segue into why fruit is allowed, for like why some people eat fruit. I think that that's like a huge question. It's like, well, can I eat fruit? And I think the reason fruit is a little bit more acceptable on a scale of a proper human diet, if that's what we're going to call it, is because if you think about the fruit, fruit contains the seeds because it wants whatever is going to consume it to eat it, because it's through the digestion and the pooping essentially of the animal or the person that this fruit is going to survive. So a raccoon goes and eats a berry. Well, that raccoon can't process the seeds. When it poops, it plants essentially, a strawberry bush. And that was a means of survival. Same with birds. That's what birds do. It's great for their production, their reproduction. And so I think the theory with fruit being more acceptable is that, well, the fruit wants you to eat it. It's not it doesn't have the toxins that a vegetable has, because vegetables, they don't need you to eat them to grow. So evolution wise, it makes sense that fruit would be a little bit more acceptable and healthy because it wants you to eat it so it can continue its reproduction. There's a caveat to that though. You know how I feel about the fruit thing though. So do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, that I feel like could be a whole other topic, is having the fruit on a high-fat diet. There's definitely mixed, I feel like, opinions about it. You have Saladino, who's pushing the animal base and having all that fruit. And maybe it's different when you're exercising hours a day like he is and surfing and you're at your goal weight. And I need to dive into this more, but I keep seeing the Randall effect, which has to do with sugars and carbs from fruit, I guess. and a high fat diet. So I know nothing about it,
Okay.
but something that whoever's listening may want to dig into more too, because I've heard it pop up a couple times, and Saladino actually just, okay, Saladino actually just mentioned it. It was in part of the title. I haven't listened to it yet.
Okay.
On one of his recent podcast episodes or just on YouTube or whatever. And there was actually, someone sent me another video that kind of debunks that. So a lot of people in the carnivore community aren't really digging what he's doing because they don't think it's very safe. So
yeah, and I've rambled on to you about the fruit thing. I had watermelon. I included watermelon in one of my, what I eat in a day videos. The first time I've had fruit in a really long time since starting carnivore. We got like a local watermelon and I cut it up for the kids and it was so juicy and delicious and it's my favorite fruit. And so I was like, you know what? I don't have metabolic issues anymore. I have surpassed what I thought I was going to achieve with my weight loss. Of course, I have new goals, but I've healed everything that I need to heal. And I've been on the healed side of everything for months now. So I included fruit and of course it was absolutely delicious. I won't be doing it every day, but like you and I have talked, I think that eating it once every other week, once every 3 weeks is really not going to hurt most people. I think where I get concerned is when you eat a lot of fat in a day and you're also eating a ton of fruit in a day too, because evolution wise, that just never really existed. And what I mean by that is that, say a native tribe, they would have a blossom of berries in a very short amount of time. Let's just say like 4 weeks, okay? In the warm months, they would eat those berries and berry bushes until they were picked off and there was none left. Well, that's only a super short amount of time in their yearly calendar. The rest of the 11 months, they're living off of, animal fat and protein and animal heavy. It was never like, okay, we're going to eat this berry bush and then we're going to go home and we're going to eat tons of meat and fat too. Yeah. The only thing I can think of is the pemmican. They would sometimes include dry berries in the pemmican. But again, if you're eating a ton of fat with just maybe a little bit of honey, that's totally different than eating an entire melon. You know what I mean? So that's just where I get concerned. I think for people who are metabolically healthy and don't have any issues, they've addressed the issues that carnivore, that why they started carnivore. I think it's fine for those people. But if you're a diabetic, if you're a diabetic, eating fruit in conjunction with a ton of fat is probably the worst thing you could do for your body. And I think any doctor would probably agree with you. They're going to blame the fat. They're not going to blame the fruit, but it's probably the fruit that's going to cause way more damage than the fat from the animal. So, yeah, I agree, because they weren't having it year round all the time with that. It's just a once in a while. Right. Now, what about honey? What is your opinion on honey? I mean, if you're eating animal based and you're having that fruit, then yeah, I think that's fine. But I'm not having it right now. Yeah, there's actually some anti-nutrients in honey too that can be, there's a reason not everyone can eat honey and there's allergies to it. So I think that that's something, if you're super sensitive and that's maybe why you started carnivore, it might be something to avoid. I don't do honey. I have carnivore bars that I like drizzled a little bit honey on just to like see what it would taste like. But I'm not like coating my salmon in honey. So yeah, it's good. When I first started, I wasn't carnivore, I was animal based. So doing what Saladino did, and maple syrup or honey on burgers is like so fantastic. It sounds so weird, but it doesn't so well. It doesn't. There's a restaurant that we go to that has like a maple syrup type ketchup sauce with blueberries in it. So it doesn't sound weird at all. And it's like delicious. Now, why is maple syrup in an animal based? Because I've never heard that. Yeah, he just said that he recently read stuff that made him want to include it. So just additional health benefits that made him feel like it was good. And he, they're so active that he's having those carbs.
I looked it up months ago. I'm so bad at like remembering all this stuff. Like I read stuff and I'm like, awesome, that makes sense. I'm going to do that. But then I can't remember like why.
Well,
Like
there's
it makes
just a
sense
lot.
at the time. Yeah.
It's a lot of information. It's like, if you don't like, I don't know, like if you're not a doctor or a medical professional who's used to like absorbing all this, like we have 2 young kids. Our kids are almost exactly the same age. Like I don't even remember to like wash my hair some days. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, honey is a high carb food. I would never do honey in my diet. I've had honey once in the 7 months that I've been carnivore, once. And like it was maybe a teaspoon of honey. So, yeah, so I don't recommend honey, but it's your choice. It's everyone's choice. The next one I think we should get to, because I could talk about the veggies and the fruit all day.
Yeah.
What about fiber?
Well, I mean, clearly we don't need it to go to the bathroom on this diet. I mean, you have too much fat and you'll be running to the bathroom. So, I mean, from that point of view, like you can have bowel movements without fiber. I've seen a lot of people say, well, you still want it for like your gut flora and like all that. But my understanding is that it's not necessary, that it's only necessary when you're having those carbs, you know, to like get them out of your body. So,
Right.
what are your thoughts?
So I obviously am a proponent of you do not need to have a healthy bowel movement in order to, you don't need to have fiber in order to achieve that. What people don't realize is that fiber was never needed for supplementation, encouraged, really pushed until the standard American diet transferred over to a low fat diet. So people who eat high fat will tell you there is no issue. What they also will tell you, and I'm sure I know you'll agree with this because we've talked about this, is there is no like discomfort in the process. I can go to the bathroom once a day for a week, depending on what I'm eating, but I can also go to the bathroom once a week, and that I'm not uncomfortable either way. It's just pushed heavily now because of the low fat diet. If you're not eating fat, you are not going to have bowel movements unless you're eating fiber. So yeah. And then, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say it's all about the high fat. If you're constipated, then you need more fat.
Yeah. And if you're not constipated and you're having really a lot of discomfort, you need to pull back the fat. Someone messaged me about this yesterday. I was like, holy smokes, like I'm having a lot of issues in the bathroom. I was like, you need to pull back that fat a little bit more until you maybe adjust. Another interesting thing that I think that people don't understand is,
yeah, the higher fiber that's where all the gas and bloating
also, yeah, what happens is that the gut bacteria will digest the fiber, and it produces methane, and that's why your stomach gets upset. That's why you get that bloated feeling. If you eat like a Brussels sprout, your gut bacteria will process that, eat it, and it produces methane, and that's all gas and bloating is. Another fact that I wrote down, this was a really good point that I had heard in a talk that I listened to, I can't recall which one, is that when our ancestors were eating vegetables in a small amount, the good beneficial bacteria usually came from the dirt that was on the plant because we didn't have to wash it. It was growing in a very natural process. And so she loves your what you eat videos. I think everyone does. And so back hundreds and hundreds of years ago, a lot of the good bacteria that was in our ancestors, gut was actually coming from the dirt and the bacteria from the dirt. But now we don't get that because everything is sprayed with pesticides and washed.
It's all shit now.
Yeah, it's all washed off. It's heavy. And I mean, like, look at like E. coli, they freak out over that because it's just like there is no bacteria on these fruits and vegetables. And if it is, it's usually not the kind you want living in your gut. So that's another thing to remember, is that our ancestors, they were getting tons of beneficial like bacteria because they were digging in the dirt all the time. They were eating the dirt and the bacteria essentially because they weren't as cleanly as we are now. So Also probably got some nasty like things from that too, but you get lots of good bacteria from meat. You can get bad bacteria, but there is good bacteria in meat too. Good with that one?
I think we're good on that. Yeah.
Okay, good. I feel like that's such an easy one to be like, like someone was like, there's no way you go to the bathroom. Like you can go to the bathroom with that diet. And I was like, what do you mean? Fat doesn't help you poop. And I was like, go ahead, take a shot of MCT oil or bacon grease and you report back because I can guarantee you I'm fat adapted and that would do it for me. So,
right.
Okay.
Yeah, that'll clean you up.
I guess like we have LDL on here, and actually Courtney and I have started planning to do another. We just said, oh no, we're gonna probably do. And my cat is moving my camera. No, we're gonna do LDL. That's on the list too. That's actually the second next one. Oh my God. Vitamin C on the carnivore diet. This is probably my second to fiber.
Yeah, I get this all the time. Like, you're gonna get scurvy. It's like, no, like you're making yourself look silly by repeating yourself and saying that. So they don't believe it because then they'll Google and it's like, oh, it's so minimal.
Right.
It's like,
you don't need a
but
lot.
Then we don't need as much. Yeah. And there are so many people in the carnivore community. Wouldn't we all have scurvy? Yeah. Like no one's having that issue. There's enough to ward off scurvy.
So this whole thing comes from like, it sounds silly, but this is where it comes from. The scurvy thing comes from pirates because pirates would eat dried out meat. They would eat, like what would have been a jerky. Well, dried out meat does not have vitamin C in it. It absolutely does not. So they absolutely would have gotten they would have had scurvy. But, and there's studies that have shown this. Dr. Kiltz's website has some really good resources on vitamin C in fresh ground beef. And fresh beef, if you eat, it's actually greater in grain finished beef. There's more vitamin C in grain finished beef, but there is still vitamin C in grass finished and grain finished beef, and it is more than enough. If you consume 2 pounds of beef in a week, that's enough to get your daily vitamin C in per the recommendations of the USDA.
Yeah, so, and that's a whole other topic is the like daily percentage of vitamins we need. A lot of it's not accurate on what we're being told.
Well, a lot of it isn't accurate for carnivores as well, because when your body is utilizing the right nutrition, getting the right nutrients, you need a lot less of certain things because it's a lot more bioavailable. So I also wrote down that they found that people who are on a high-fat, low-carb diet need a lot less vitamin C than people on the standard American diet because the pathway to absorb vitamin C and glucose is the same. It's digested in the same metabolic pathway. But when you're not eating those carbohydrates and your body doesn't need to metabolize the glucose, your body will just take in all that vitamin C because there's nothing to fight with it while it's digesting. So
yeah, makes sense.
It's super easy. A lot of people are like, you're going to get scurvy. And I'm like, I've been doing it for 7 months. I don't have it yet. I'm waiting. Like tell me when I will get it because I'm really interested to hear as to when that's going to happen. Because I don't think it's going to happen. I eat a lot of beef.
Yeah, and I mean, look at the people who have been doing this for years.
I mean, Kelly Hogan has been doing it for 17 years?
Yeah,
or something like that.
He's
done it forever. Been for 22 years. Sean Baker's been on it for 7 years. Like it's just, there's no
we're good.
Concern.
Not a concern. Next.
Okay. The next one, cholesterol. I think this is probably the biggest one. I think cholesterol is the biggest one. Where do we start with this one? This is like my favorite one to talk about.
There's so many different parts to this. I feel like that I mean, there's so many moving parts. So we could pick wherever
I think the thing to start about is where like the demonization of cholesterol came from. And it came from the guy, most people know, his name is Ansel Keys. And he did the it was the 7 country study. And basically he did a study of different cultures and countries of people who ate a high fat diet and their heart rate and cholesterol, rates. And he found that countries that had a high fat diet were more likely to have heart disease. Well, what people don't know, like this is made up all of our food recommendations and every nutrition advice that our country gives. It's really, really sad, because what they don't know is that there were, it was 25 or 20, it was 22 or 25 countries that were studied, and only 7 of them proved that a high fat diet was associated with heart disease. The other ones didn't. So he just left those out of the study because they didn't prove his point.
And what else were they eating too?
Well, I believe one of them was, some European countries where smoking is very, very, very prominent. If you're eating high fat with high carb, like France loves to eat their bread with their butter, that's not going to help you with your cholesterol as well. So that's where that really was derived from. But I don't even want to talk about the study because there's so much literature out there that's kind of like, yeah, this was like really poorly done. But he was an egomaniac. He was absolutely brilliant. He was really egotistical, and he won the fight because he was really resourceful, really well known in the community, and he had all the right connections to push his agenda, and he was successful. So that's where everything comes from. But it's just, you can go out there and Google it now, and people are like, oh yeah, this is probably not like a great study to reference anymore. So that's where it comes from.
Yeah, but it's really the carbs and the sugars and everything that's messing with you when you're having the high fat. If you're just having high fat and not the other crap, then your cholesterol should be fine.
Speaking of carbs, there's what you want to do questions like at the end, because
Sure.
we're covering these pretty quickly. So another part of the cholesterol issue is that there's a question box. If anyone has any other questions, we'll get to the 2 from Daniela, and hi, I'm sorry, she's my follower, and she's so sweet. Hyada, I don't know how to say that. I'm so sorry. We will definitely get to those. Another thing that people don't understand is that cholesterol is essential to survival. Your body cells, every cell in your body actually contains cholesterol. Every single cell. There's 7 trillion cells, and every single one of them has cholesterol in the molecular makeup of a cell. When you have low cholesterol, your body literally cannot produce cells like it needs to, and your cells cannot function like they need to. Like you did your live yesterday, and someone said, and I was like, Dr. Ovadia is an open heart surgeon. He will tell you every single patient that comes on his table has low cholesterol. Mm-hmm. So not having proper cholesterol can actually be detrimental, and not even just your cell makeup. I wrote down that all your steroid hormones are made up of almost entirely cholesterol. So if you're missing your steroid hormones, your body ceases to run properly.
Yeah, I mean, cholesterol is definitely important. And that's how it's supposed to work. If you're not eating enough, then your body will make some. And if you're eating a lot, then your body pulls back on how much it's making too. And right. There's so many different things that go into when you get your cholesterol done. It's not as simple as oh, here's my number. It's okay, you need to look at the ratio between the HDL and the LDL. You can really dive deep and get more blood work done to see the particle size. Jeff has a good analogy that he said on the live. If you have your car shut and you open the sunroof and you pour a bunch of playpen balls in it, well, that's going to be easy to take out. If you open the door, that's going to come out really easy. But if you fill your car with sand, a lot of that's going to still get stuck in there if you open the door. And
Right.
that's not good. You don't want all the stuff like stuck in there. So particle size is a huge thing too. Like there's just so much involved than just getting
The
your
LDL.
cholesterol numbers back.
Yeah. Well, my best friend is a doctor, and a couple years ago, the last time I did get my cholesterol taken, my LDL was elevated. It actually wasn't that bad. It was 206. 200 is like the recommendation. And I was on a high fat ketogenic diet for years. And she was like, "Oh, your LDL's a little high, nothing to be concerned about." But my HDL was astronomical, which is the good cholesterol.
Mm-hmm.
And my best friend was like, "Your HDL is like higher than average in a very positive way. There is nothing to be concerned about. What's concerning is when the HDL is really, really low and your LDL is super high, along with high triglycerides. The triglycerides is where that heart, the heart failure and the heart disease, the clogged arteries, things like that. That's where, in my opinion, and from what I've read, the triglycerides is really what nails the coffin, and that nails the coffin.
Yeah, that's an important one to look at too. And I feel like there's still, I don't know all this obviously, but I hear that come up a lot too. So paying attention to whatever the triglycerides are.
Yeah. And then the last thing about cholesterol that I find super interesting, the reason that LDL tends to be raised on a high fat diet is because when your body is not using carbohydrates as a fuel source, there is something that needs to transport fat to the mitochondria to produce energy, right? LDL is a part of that transformation process of pulling fat, converting it to energy. So of course, if you have more fat in your body and you're using fat as a fuel, your LDL is naturally going to go up along with HDL because it's a part of the cell that helps transport fat to be turned into energy. And of course, this is all like into the Krebs cycle, things like this, like ATP, yada yada yada. I don't think most people want to hear that, but it is a part of the process. That cholesterol helps transport fat to a cell to make energy. So of course you would need more LDL and HDL cholesterol for that reason. You're eating, probably a 75%, fat diet. So the cholesterol has been it's just so annoying to me. So
yeah, because I get that comment a lot, and it's people, they're just misinformed.
It's redundant. And you talk, I didn't know this until you had said, talk about dietary cholesterol and how it affects
like dietary cholesterol does not affect your blood cholesterol. So me eating the cholesterol is not going to raise it.
It's like
me eating that with carbs. Yeah.
75% of your cholesterol is made within the body, correct?
Something like that.
I think it's 75%. I think it's 70, and then 25% is from, other probably intake from the dietary intake and other aspects, I'm sure.
Yeah, I mean, everyone I know that eats this way, and I say it before, I've said it a few times, and I get those comments, "Oh, her source is, trust me, bro, everyone I know is fine." But it's like, it is. That means something. When everybody I know that eats this way has great lab work, like, why are we ignoring that?
Right. Just because it's anecdotal doesn't mean it's not valid.
Right. They want a peer-reviewed study. It's like, oh my gosh.
Well, and a peer-reviewed study is absolutely, I think, essential at some point. But it's not being done because no one wants to pay for it. And no one wants to pay for it because it's not going to fit the agenda, and it's not going to fit into their, pocketbook either. Dr. Zaldivar during her interview said she's a dietitian, and they were, whatever institution she was working for asked her for, it was some sort of hospital, some setting. And they said, "Hey, can you write our dietary recommendations? We'd love to see." Yeah,
I heard her say this. Keep going. This is good.
We'd love to see what you would recommend. And so she recommended a very high fat, high protein diet, cut down the processed carbs. And they ended up choosing another dietitian's recommendations because without that recommendation, they were not going to please the sponsor, some of their sponsors of that hospital or that medical facility. So I'm pretty sure she said after that, she was like, I'm done with this sauce.
Yeah, I mean, that's BS. And that's just kind of goes along with everything I say. Like my freaking shirt says, like, eat meat and question everything. Follow the money trail. This is all this sad diet stuff. It's all being funded by like freaking Kellogg's. I mean, we saw the new like White House recommendations, right? Where eggs and meat are at the bottom, but Frosted Flakes is more healthy. Like, oh, this is when I like get a little riled up. And Jeff was trying to calm me down on the live yesterday.
And I think that people are finally like, I've seen a lot of people, of course, my feed is very much tailored to like my interest. But almost everyone is like, what the hell? But the people who are looking at that and not like thinking like, oh, there might be something wrong with that. I hate to say it, people, like someone called me like a cliche because I called them a sheep, and I was like, but you're not even looking at that. And like when an egg fried in butter is at the bottom, but like Kellogg's cereal is at the top, and you're like, that's okay. It. That makes sense. Like, we're going to go with that. Like, if there's a brand associated with it, it's being funded. Someone is being paid off to get that on the top of the list. And it's true. These are billion and billion dollar companies. They can absolutely pay their way to the White House, and they already have. But this has been through any administration, any type of guideline. It's not, it's not a party issue. It's an overall issue. It's a total just like crises.
And people don't like that. It's an uncomfortable feeling to know that everything you've been told might have been a lie, So it's kind of like they ignore it and they don't want to believe it. There's a word and I can't think of what it's called.
I think the ex-plant eater did a video about why, like how she started thinking about vegetarianism and then going into a vegan. And she said, I like remember being 11 years old and learning the food pyramid, and they're like, butter, beef, stay away. And she was like, and that like, lasted on me. Like that really, like that made an impression on her. So, okay, next question. What can you eat on a carnivore diet? We covered this a little bit with the fruit and veggies. What do you eat? What can you eat?
Well, not to like plug myself, but I do have a free download. And if you go on my links page, I have a grocery list that you can download that just dives a little bit more deeper. But I mean, like the basics, like, okay, any meat is on the table. No pun intended, but like beef would be ideal. I mean, it just depends on how picky you want to get. You can eat any animal, but beef is, I would say, the best because they're not monogastric. So, they got all their little stomach compartments and they're doing different with the grass they eat than like a pig would. So, I mean, to just keep it basic, like beef or any other ruminant animals like lamb or deer, that would be great. Get rid of your oils, even avocado and coconut. Those would definitely be better than the other seed oils, but use tallow, use lard, use butter, dairy if you tolerate it, and eggs. But you don't have to eat eggs. But I mean, a lot of people thrive on just beef, water, and salt. So it's really up to you. I know you like your chicken wings.
I love chicken wings, but that's about I'll do chicken thighs. I am very picky with my chicken thighs. And like when I say chicken, maybe once a week, if that, like once a week. It's usually once every other week. I do enjoy chicken thighs, but I find a really good quality chicken thighs very, very difficult to find. So I'm very picky about that. I love chicken wings. We do very limited amount of pork. My husband does not tolerate pork well at all. So like I bought some ground pork at Trader Joe's. Courtney, you're responsible for that. The other day, because I like to mix it in with ground beef and just have like a different meat in there. But I would say 90% of my diet is beef, whether it's ground beef or steak. I started doing oxtail, which I enjoyed quite a little bit more than I thought I would. But yeah, everything is fine, but I would say stick to beef, predominantly eggs are just like, I don't love eggs, but eggs are great. And the processed meats is also something that I really try and limit to, like lunch meats, the salamis, um, things like that I think should be limited. But I love like little beef sticks when I'm on the go because I'd rather eat that than a French fry, you know? So I think that that's probably true across the board for most carnivores will tell you, unless there's a sensitivity, that beef is like just the easiest to access to.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay. And counting calories. Should you count calories? That's another big question.
I don't. This eating this way is the only time in my entire life that I've been able to lose weight without doing any sort of tracking. I don't
Okay.
track any macros. Sometimes I'll pay attention, like just to, I mean, not that I'm trying to hit a protein goal because I won't force anything, but like I've been really hungry lately, like more than normal, and I'm having like at least a pound and a half of meat a day plus dairy, where I would normally be around one. So if you are tracking ish, I mean, you want your protein to be like pretty much like a pound per like goal body weight. So like my goal weight would be 130, and so ideally you want to eat around like 130 grams of protein.
Yeah.
And like kind of the same with fat, like usually 1 to 1, I think on the fat, but everybody's different. But yeah, it's nice to not have to track and lose weight.
It is. Yeah, I never tracked calories. I was keto for about 4 to 5 years, 4-ish years, a little over 4 years, and I never counted a calorie, but I did track what I ate to minimize the carbs, just to keep track of my net carbs. I never tracked a calorie, and I went back in my carb counter, and some days I was eating 2,500 calories, and I lost 60 pounds before having my second son. So that was, since my weight loss, I have really tried to avoid counting calories, and that goes for about 6 years now. But with carnivore, there's almost like nothing to track. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
and I am down almost 30 pounds. I hit the 28 last week. And my goal was, yes, to lose weight, but I did not think I was going to lose that much weight, which is really exciting. But I've never tracked a calorie. And I think I actually am doing a interview with Dr. Bart Kay, and he's a scientist who talks a lot about how we have developed like a calorie counting system, like how it's actually the mechanism to do it, and how it's a lot of like the machine basically disintegrates food. It takes a sample of that food and it breaks it down into a chemical count, which is like a calorie, right? And our body doesn't do that though. We don't explode food. The food doesn't blow up inside of us. We have like a thermogenic effect. And so like a calorie is not how our body looks at digesting food. I don't know the science behind that though, which is why I want to do an interview. And so, yeah, the calories in, calories out is really hard for me because in some ways I do think that there might be some validity to that, but I also wonder if the validity from calories in, calories out comes when you're just not eating a proper diet.
I agree, because I do see that a lot lately. Like when eating a carnivore diet, it's not necessarily calories in, calories out, that you can eat more calories than normal and still lose weight. And it's kind of a mind F for me, especially this last week, being so more hungry than normal. And I know, like, because I've been eating a pound and a half of ground beef. So whatever, 280 calories times 6. I mean, it's almost like 1,600 calories just in the beef. And then I'm having dairy, I'm having some cheese, I'm having cream in my coffee. You know, so I'm probably having a good at least 2,000 calories a day and not working out. You know,
I
so
was gonna say, if you start working out, is that where the appetite increase came from?
yeah. So, I mean, I've been doing a little here and there, but I think it's just because like the week of my cycle, but it's just kind of a mind thing you need to get over that, you know, and some days it's going to balance out anyways. Like some days you might be really hungry and then the next you might not eat as much. But yeah, the
Right.
whole calorie thing is interesting to dive more into, because I'm seeing that it's not the same as when you're eating a regular diet.
Right. Yeah. And then another thing that I like to think about, because I do like to think that maybe there is some validity to calories in, calories out, even though I don't think that our body looks at like a calorie. Um, but I've heard, well, your body, then you're just eating in a calorie deficit. You're just eating a ton of meat, but you're still in a calorie deficit, even though like you're just naturally in a calorie deficit. And it's kind of bypassed. And I think what we don't look at is, well, that's huge. Like if your body is actually stopping you to the point where it's like, you don't need to eat anymore. You're a little overweight. You're unhealthy. Eat this much. You're going to be satiated. You're going to be full. You're not going to feel hungry, and you're going to lose weight and be healthier. That's huge. And I've only heard one discussion about this. Like, why are we not talking about that more? Because if your body is getting you to a point, like I've been at the same weight for like almost 2 weeks now, but if your body is getting you to like this state of homeostasis where it's like, okay, I'm going to let you eat as much as you want until you're full, but I'm going to get you to a healthy weight, a healthy body composition, and you don't have to count calories. That's like,
Yeah.
like your body will do all the work for you with minimal effort. Just give it the right food.
Yeah. No, that's a really good point. That's yeah, I haven't really like thought about it that way.
Yeah, like why are like, and I didn't think about that until I had heard it in a chat, and it might have been with Dr. Anthony Chafee. I think it was, and it's like, well, you're just naturally in like a calorie deficit. Well, I didn't have to count calories. I literally just ate all the right foods. So I get really passionate about calorie counting because I'm someone who, I work out a lot. I have a lot of friends that are in the fitness like space. I have a lot of gym friends, and it's all the trainers. All the trainers that I talk to, well, are you in a calorie deficit? Oh my God, the ex-plant eater is on here. Hi.
We love you.
We love you. We were just talking about you.
Her ears are burning.
So yeah, I think that's really hard for me to hear a lot of, because that's the first thing is people will, oh, Devin, hey, how did you lose the weight? I just ate meat. Well, my trainer told me A, B, C, D, and E. Well, are you losing weight? No. Well, it's not working. You're doing, it's the recommendations are coming from the government. They were trained to repeat this information. You need to evaluate, but no one wants to listen because it's really hard to change like your ideology.
Yeah.
And also calorie counting is not sustainable. I don't care what anyone says. Do you want to be 85 years old eating counting calories? And no one says yes to that question.
Yeah.
No one says yes. I can be 85 and keep eating meat.
Yeah.
All right. What about dairy? Let's talk about dairy, because I get asked a lot about dairy. I'm not a dairy person. I'll preface the conversation with that. So you can take over.
I am a dairy person, and I need to not be as much of a dairy person, because I know, like, I mean, it has its place and it's fine. I think if you tolerate it, it's fine. But my understanding is it can still be like causing some like inflammation or mucus and stuff. So, I mean, it's a personal
You eat raw
decision.
dairy.
What's that?
You eat raw dairy.
Not all the time.
Okay.
Because it's expensive. So, yeah, I mean, I went to go get my raw cream today, and I don't remember it being this price. It must have, but it was $13. And I'm like, or I can just get a different cream that's $4, so it's tough. I mix it up. But yeah, I was I was getting ready. I was getting comfortable with the idea of doing a little stint of no dairy. And then I found bread cheese. And now that's all out the window, because it's like that is like my new passion. So yeah, I don't know. I think I have too much, and I think I should focus more on just beef. And I know you barely like sprinkle anything on, huh?
Yeah, I think like for me getting crazy. Well, I do put half and half in my coffee. I just like the taste of half and half better than whole like whole whipping, like whatever it is, the whole
heavy
cream.
cream.
And that's like the dairy for me. I mean butter, I guess some people consider that dairy. I don't. Like I just don't. Most people don't have a reaction to that. So I guess if you're lactose intolerant, you would. but I do butter on my steak. But yeah, the craziest I get is with those taco bowls. Like I'll sprinkle like just a little bit of cheese to get like it melted. That really is it. Like I tried that bread cheese yesterday and that was like holy dairy. Like my stomach was like a little upset over it
Yeah, it's not
because
used to it.
I've never been a dairy person. I got food poisoning after eating cheese when I was little, and so I just like have never been into cheese. Like yogurt, I can't do kefir. Like I just can't bring
No.
myself to do it. So I think for me it's very easy because I've just never been a dairy eater. But I would love to drink raw milk. I would love to do that. It's very hard to get near us. So yeah, I would love to drink raw milk, but I wish I were more of a dairy person. I'm just not. The bread
Yeah,
cheese was really good though.
it tastes like the grilled cheese, right?
It does.
But yeah, as far as the dairy, I mean, raw would be a great option because it is so gentle. A lot of people that are lactose intolerant can tolerate
Mhm.
raw dairy. Because when you're pasteurizing it, it's killing off a lot of like good bacteria too. So when you aren't pasteurizing it, it has good stuff in there for you. I mean, it's a little more complicated than that with the science, but yeah, it's definitely more gentle.
Right. Okay. Yeah, I think dairy is like widely accepted as like in moderation. It's okay.
Yeah.
And then how about the last question and then we can answer it. There's a couple questions that we got in the comments. Um, Salt. What about salt? Are you worried about high blood pressure with salt?
I didn't even know that was like a thing because people are like, oh my God, the sodium, your blood pressure. I'm like, my blood pressure is perfect. And I plow through salt. Like, you
Yeah,
ask
you
my
have bucket.
family. Like, yeah, well, we have the big bucket, but like every time I make something drop, it's like, oh my God, it's so salty. And I'm like adding more. So I love salt and my blood pressure is perfect. So,
The blood pressure in all the things that I have seen like that really click and make sense to me. Um, blood pressure is because of all the junk shit we eat. It's just all the garbage that we eat. I don't know where this like sodium correlation came from, but I do know that I literally drink salt. Like I drink sea salt and the only time I get high blood pressure is when I'm nervous. So, I've never had high blood pressure. I'm usually when I go into the doctor, I'm like at that 118. You know, what is it, 120 over 80? I'm like usually 118 over 76. And I've been keto for a really long time, like
yeah.
really long. So yeah, I drink salt. It's great for the minerals. I work out for 2 hours a day. I sweat a lot during my workouts, so I almost always have it right before I go to the gym or right after. Or if it's really intense, I will drink it while I'm at the gym to replenish those electrolytes because that's all salt is electrolytes. It's a necessary part of the diet. It's a great pre-workout. It energizes you because it gives you all that stuff that you need.
Yeah, and it's super important, especially on a low carb diet. Like you
Mm-hmm.
need I mean, sodium mainly. I'm still kind of torn on the magnesium and potassium because I see people that after a while don't use it anymore and maybe just need it for the transition. But once in a while, like I'll get a leg cramp at night. I'm like, oh, I should probably take a magnesium the next day. So that would be something to be mindful about. But salt is super important, especially.
I didn't even know that was really an issue, like the magnesium thing. I had taken magnesium for helping me sleep, and it gives me horrific migraines. So but I never have leg cramps.
Well, there's a few different magnesiums.
Yeah, I was taking the one that was meant for sleep, and
Okay.
it fucked me up.
I
So
don't know the names. I know one's like magnesium citrine or something. There's
yeah,
two or three
for
different
different
types.
things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, let's answer some of those questions. Let me see. Um, oh shoot. Okay, are you planning, I don't know if she's still in here. Are you planning on permanently sticking to the carnivore diet? I am going to do it for as long as I feel that it's benefiting me.
Yeah, I mean, same. I don't see myself changing anytime soon unless like more information, shifts. Sorry, I'm like choking on my spit. And something like makes me be like, oh, okay, maybe this isn't the right thing. I'm always going to have an open mind and not be so, what is it, like dogmatic about
Yeah.
this. But as of right now, I'm not feeling deprived of other things. I might do especially at my goal weight, I might do the fruit here and there. But I don't feel like I'm missing out on anything. I'm not having those like cravings for other things. So as long as I feel, as long as I
I don't
feel
want him on
okay.
camera. I know you're like that too. I don't want him on camera. Yeah, that's the only thing. The only thing that I really think of is like if I could get some fresh fruit. But I feel very comfortable with incorporating that into my lifestyle anyway because I am so healthy and like I am like at a good place. So if I really truly wanted to, I would just eat fruit. Like I really would. I just don't feel deprived. Like that watermelon, I wanted the watermelon and I was like, you know what? Like it is not going to do anything. I'm not going to eat it every day if I do.
Yeah.
So yeah, and if my lab results came back and they were super concerning, I would also consider, I don't anticipate that because I've been keto for so long and I had great lab results. Like even my cholesterol was like barely raised. Not that I believe that anyway. But I really like, unless my labs were, indicating something problematic, or if I did start having issues, I would definitely switch things up. But as long as everything continues as it is, I will kind of just stay where I'm at.
Yeah, and it's like, okay, I said that too, like, oh, my labs, but it's like, well, what would change? Because I'm not gonna, I know adding like bread back in and candy, like that's not gonna
It's
help
gonna
me.
help.
So like, what would really be so
Like
bad,
a
and what would that?
vegetable. Yeah, like would you eat a vegetable? Well, how is that going to?
What's that gonna fix? We're
Yeah.
getting all the nutrients from meat, so yeah, I don't see there being an issue, really.
And then speaking of carbs, there is a debatable topic regarding fruits. Would they be considered a bad carb? Depends on who you talk to. Like people like Dr. Anthony Chafee, Dr. Kiltz, Dr. Ken Berry, Bella Steak and Butter Gal, Kelly Hogan. Overwhelmingly, most carnivore professionals will tell you, this kid is really trying to get up in here. They will tell you that even fruits from carbs are bad.
Yeah, and I feel like I have to agree. I feel like if it's going to be a major part of your diet, like we kind of talked about this earlier, if you catch the replay, you can rewind, and maybe just having it be a sporadic thing. I don't know. For me, also, like you're talking about watermelon, like my kids were having watermelon yesterday, and sometimes when I cut them fruit, I'm like, oh, this would be good. But yesterday, it was like it was kind of overwhelming. I'm like, oh my God, like I would really love to have a bite of this right now. And I haven't felt that this whole time. But I was like, God, I don't think I could have just one bite though. I feel like that, hi Ash, that would be a slippery slope for me. And it's like, then it triggers all the fruit cravings. That's why I stopped doing fruit, because it was just, I wanted more fruit, and it was just, I wanted more sugar. And I felt like it was messing with my hunger cues, and it was making me more hungry. Like I'd eat 2,000 calories in meat and I still wanted to like snack. So
Yeah, I didn't feel that when I ate the watermelon. I wanted more watermelon because it was so good because it's in season. It's not like buying a watermelon in January,
yeah.
And I was like, oh wow, like this is amazing. um and for anyone who's watching now, if you want to ask questions, we're probably going to wrap it up in the next 10 minutes, so feel free to ask questions. But I like wasn't triggered by it. I like finished the fruit, I was like, oh, I'm done, and that was like the end of it. So
Yeah, that probably wouldn't happen for me.
yeah, see, but I've never had like, and I don't mean if you're uncomfortable with this, you can say it. I've never had like disordered eating tendencies, and you've been open about that. You feel that you have.
Mm-hmm.
I've had like a very good relationship with food pretty much my entire life. But you say that you feel triggered by certain foods because you have struggled with that.
Yeah, I just know if I started eating the watermelon yesterday, then I would just want fruit the rest of the day. And I mean, whatever, fruit's not a bad thing, but then I just wonder what would that do to me like the next day? Am I just going to keep wanting like all this fruit and sugar? And I don't know. So
Yeah.
right now it feels like a slippery slope, because
So yeah, you don't want to go down
I
there.
probably wouldn't have control. And then
Right.
it's also going to get in the way of my weight loss. Like maybe when I'm at maintenance mode, then maybe I'll toy with adding it in here and there. But right now, I feel like that would cast as it triggers me. Yeah, I think it can, especially for those of us who have eating issues or, emotional eating.
She
Yeah.
also said the ones you just named are the people whose advice I really follow. Yeah, that's why I named them off the top of my head, because I'm like, who do I trust the most? I know you're like a big Saladino like follower. I don't. I just started following him like 2 weeks
Are
ago.
you talking about me or someone
Yeah,
else?
are you a big
Okay.
Saladino? Yeah, are
I
you?
mean, I do. Yeah.
Yeah,
I watch
yeah.
him, but I mean, we're obviously eating different things. So,
I didn't listen. I didn't even know like he was like a deal, like really until you had mentioned him, and I was like, oh, like I know who Paul Saladino is because I listened to a podcast 4 years ago where he was on it. I had no idea he had like taken this trajectory of his like platform. So I checked it out. I was like, oh yeah, like this is where all this no salad. I cannot. I think he's very brilliant though. I do think he is super, super intelligent. I think he just has like this very like he has a personality, you know, on his platform that he like is portraying. I do think he's very brilliant. I just like Dr. Ken Berry, Judy Cho, Anthony Chafee, Bella, Kelly Hogan, they're all very on the same page, and I feel like you get consistent like recommendations with them,
yeah.
um the
Well,
same things that have worked for them.
yeah. And that's what's so weird. I mean, because I feel like Saladino has a lot of great stuff too, especially like the seed oils. Like he has a lot of good information. But what's weird is like, okay, how can these people, because he used to be strict carnivore, how
Mm-hmm.
can these people have such a different opinion on this one thing? Like, how can some be like, absolutely no fruit, and he's looking at whatever research and being like, oh, hell yes, fruit. Like, it's kind of weird, you know? It's like a
Right.
big thing to be not agreeing on. So it's like, who's right? I
Yep.
don't know.
Yeah, it's like I'm not so closed-minded that I'm like, oh, it's it's this way or the highway. I look forward to more research coming out because now I think that this is a space where people are like, oh yeah, like there might be something to this.
Mm-hmm.
Um, or try to prove otherwise. That Harvard study just came out like a couple weeks ago that showed very positive results with people who were on a carnivore diet with no fruit. Noted, that should be noted. So yeah, I look forward to maybe more studies coming out. And if fruit doesn't seem to be an issue, then I'll be happy to include it in my diet. I think it's just all about evolving with the
Mm-hmm.
evidence.
Yeah, and having an open mind for sure and what works best for you, because obviously he's thriving eating that way and his labs came back fine. So I don't
And
know,
he looks
everyone's
healthy.
different. Yeah.
So, all right. Any more questions? I think like 5 more minutes. I think we pretty much covered all the Q&As. If there's something that we missed, there's 10 people on here. So I'm happy to review anything else. I have my list of trusty notes here.
Is that
So,
what this little question mark bubble is?
oh my
Oh, I don't
God.
know. I've never seen
Yeah,
that.
is there a yeah, usually if there's a question in there, it'll pop up like highlighted red, um,
Okay.
with like a list of questions. So
Interesting.
yeah, I think we pretty much got all of it.
Oh, and we should say another topic that comes up all the time is the environmental aspect.
We are
And
going to do a whole
yeah,
chat on that.
yeah, we need to, that could alone take a good hour. So I skipped right over keto.
I was keto for almost 5 years. I was really, really into keto. I loved it. I really wish I would have started this this page when I was on my keto journey because I think I would have really had a lot of success already because I did it for so long. I am just like I'm not trying to be cocky, but I was very into the science of ketosis. So I love talking about keto. I'll always be like more, I think I consider myself more ketovore just because I came from keto. Because like keto literally saved my life. I was 220 pounds. I'm 5'3", so that's like really heavy for me. And then I lost 60 pounds on keto. I've been able to lose more weight with carnivore, but why did I stop keto? I had my second son. He's 2.5 years old now. I went right in high fat carnivore. Yeah. Yeah. I went, so I had my son. I was breastfeeding for a while. So I kind of just ate what felt good because nursing and throwing things into it is just really complicated. I didn't want to compromise on my supply. But as soon as he stopped nursing, I went right to keto. It was like that. Like the day he stopped nursing, I was like, all right, I'm doing keto. I just like my flare-ups with my interstitial cystitis were still happening on keto, and I was in so much pain. And I believe it is because the almond milk. I really truly believe that. This is not pretty, but interstitial cystitis literally feels like a UTI all day, every day, all night, every night.
Awful.
So it was horrible. I was on pain medication. Is someone trying to join the conversation? So yeah, I was in so much pain that I just did not care to continue with keto if it was going to. I'm sure I could add back things like avocados and things like that and be totally fine. But I just feel so good that I'm like, oh, why risk that pain if I don't have to?
Why mess with it? Yeah, right. I definitely, because I've dabbled in keto too, probably over the last 6 years, on and off with, my pregnancies and all that stuff too. And I feel better eating this way than I did when I was keto. And I like the simplicity of it. You're not making like a cauliflower puree something and this vegetable and this meat. It's like, what cut of beef do you want tonight?
Yeah.
And I mean, obviously I'm making some other stuff for my kids, but it's just easy.
Right. Yeah. And I think the thing I talk about this on almost every live is that there are so many keto friendly foods now, like that you really can keep your blood sugars down. You can stay in ketosis, but they're absolutely horrible for you. And I love sweets. And so the keto sweets were just like getting to me. And I was like, well, if I just like say no to all of it, I can just make my life easier and not be tempted. And someone at the Wealth of Health said, almond milk is the death of me. No, get that stuff away from me. The thing is I love almond milk because I'm not a dairy person. So I've been drinking almond milk for forever. Like I remember the first time in college that my husband came over, I had cereal, which this is, 11 years ago. And no, 12, 13 years ago. Yeah, it was way longer than I'd like to admit. And we were eating cereal and I had almond milk. And he's like, what is this? I was like, it's almond milk. Like, it's so good. So I've been drinking almond milk for forever, but I've also been having kidney issues since then. So it makes me wonder if all my issues with like my urinary tract and my kidneys were all from the just consumption of almond milk all day, every day.
You never know. It could be. Yeah. And as far as like the keto treats and stuff, I would love those too. I feel like this is the first time I've done something not just for weight loss and doing it for health benefits. When I was keto, it was all about weight loss. I mean, whatever weird ingredients, as long as the the carb was low, like I'd eat whatever keto cookies. I mean, whatever's gonna like make you shit your pants, but at least it tastes good, So like this is the first time that I'm like paying attention to the ingredients or lack thereof, because there isn't much. So this is the first time I'm like doing this for health. So that's a mind shift just in itself with, a past of wonky eating. So.
Right. Yeah. Well, the health oxalates, totally the oxalates. And I think of back to keto, I was eating almond flour in everything too. As my replacement, it was almond flour all day, like almond flour in breads, almond flours in meatloaf. I am willing to like stake something on that because almond flour everything. Loaves of bread, like, pumpkin bread with almond flour in it. So I just said I was diagnosed with an enlarged kidney in January or February. And I think it was the oxalates. I think it totally was. Yes, I always hated cow's milk. Oh, I hate it. And drink almond milk for years. Yeah, you could not pay me to drink any milk. Like I would love to be. You know what? My tastes have changed so much since starting carnivore though. I almost wonder if I'd be like, oh yeah, this is so good.
Yeah, well, I just remember like back in the day when I used to drink and I'd wake up being hungover and I would just chug milk. It was just so good.
We started buying organic grass-fed milk for our kids because we were on the almond milk kick until I was like, oh my God, like almond milk is so terrible. My oldest had horrible lactose intolerance when he was born. up until he was 3 years old, and now he's almost 6. He does not like dairy. Like, he really doesn't like dairy. I think that will remain true for his entire life. But my youngest one was, breastfed, and just totally, I gave him the organic like milk, and he was like, chug, chug, chug. And I was like, this kid is going to be my carnivore. Like, he's going to be the carnivore.
Yeah. Yeah. Try raw for sure.
I would love to get a hold of it. I actually looked at like they have like a milk share program or something that you can like find them in. Keto without grain free is, yeah, I agree with you. I just like there's a trainer on here that's keto focused. Tyler Fullerton Nutrition is what his page is called by on TikTok. And he like will tell you like, don't do anything besides meat and veggies. Like, just keep it to meat and veggies, which if you're keto, I totally think is the way to go. Just like keep it to meat and veggies. So don't do all the crazy recipes. Just stick to meat and veggies. If you're going to be keto, I wouldn't eat the veggies. So. Okay. Like 2 minutes, and then 3:15, I think we're good to get off on at 3:15.
Yeah.
Any more questions? Thank you so much for everyone who asked a question.
Yeah, this was good. And we'll definitely be working on the environmental aspect and talking about that soon, because that's a hot topic.
It's a hot topic, yeah. And it's something that I feel like I need weeks of, just a couple, like an hour a day to do research, an hour every couple of days. Bye.
Bye. Thanks for coming.
And then also, I think we should also say that we are going to do a talk with Delighted to Meet You, and we are going to be talking about all the things that were super helpful on our carnivore journey. That could be, like an app or a meat or an appliance or whatever it was, a supplement that we felt helped us on the carnivore journey. And that will be at the end of September.
Yeah, that will be fun.
Yeah, it's going to be like a keto ladies round table. No, I mean a carnivore ladies round table.
Yeah, that'll be good.
All right. Are you good to get off then?
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah,
Thank you,
thank
everyone.
you guys.
Thanks, Courtney. I'll talk to you later.
Alrighty, bye.
Bye.